Hi guys, and welcome to my first episode of the EMPWR podcast. I am Sam, your host, and I am so happy to be here today. Truly though, this feels so surreal because this podcast has been a work in progress for a very long time. It's something that has been on my heart for a very long time. I think being on Instagram, connecting with you all, and just like building the amazing community I have, I knew I eventually needed to get to a place where I could connect with you all deeper, which we will talk about more, just like the inspo and the reason behind the podcast. But honestly, today's episode is going to be a solo episode. I'm going to dive deeper into my story, my journey, where I started to where I ended up, and talk a little bit more about what to expect from my podcast moving forward. There's going to be a lot of exciting things to come. Okay, so let's talk about the name EMPWR. Obviously, if you know kind of my background and where I'm at on Instagram and what I have to offer, I have my fitness app, EMPWR, and I thought about changing the name for the podcast, but honestly, there's so much meaning that comes from the word empower to me. I wanted to keep it the same. So when I think about empowerment, what that means to me is getting to a state where you feel fully confident in making those day-to-day decisions. That's not going to only instill confidence, but really help you strive to be the strongest version of yourself. And I knew I just had to keep the same name. So how is this going to be different from obviously my app, Instagram? My app's amazing, right? I have a lot of fitness and nutrition things on there, but there's not a lot of me going into depth on topics and being able to connect with you guys. I have built an amazing community in my app and on my Instagram, and I just wanted something more to be able to connect with you guys. Also, over the past year and a half, 2 years, there's been so many good questions on these Q&As that I've done, questions I get in my DMs and just comments, being able to connect with you guys, that I knew I needed a place to go deeper on. I feel like Instagram specifically over the last few years has become a place where it's just short clips and, 60-second stories, short reels, and there's not much depth. So hopefully this is an opportunity for us to connect more, learn from each other, grow deeper. And honestly, it's not just going to be me on here. I'm planning to bring on some amazing guests that are influential leaders in the health and wellness space, in the fitness space, in the nutrition space, that is going to help me become further educated on specific topics, and hopefully you guys too. So hopefully it's a place at the end of the day we can all feel empowered and learn and grow with each other. All right, so let's take it back to the very beginning. Let's start with my childhood. I want you guys to learn a little bit more about where I came from, because honestly, who I am today is totally different from where I started. You might look at me and think, oh, she's been an athlete her whole life, been in shape her whole life. And that is not the case at all. I have been through periods of my life where I've weighed 20 to 25 pounds heavier. And that's not being pregnant. That's just from making different types of life decisions. So I'm going to take you guys back from the very beginning. So I am from Tennessee, born and raised here. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee when I was 3 years old. And I had always grown up in an active family. My parents are both much younger than a lot of my other friends' parents growing up. So they had me when my mom was 24, my dad was 19. So they were all very active with us all. I am the oldest of 3 siblings. I have a younger brother who's a couple of years younger than me, and then a younger sister who is 4 years younger than me. So we were all very close growing up. But when it came to athletics and the arts and the difference between me and my family, I was kind of the black sheep. So I was much more artistic. I sang, I danced, I acted. I did a lot of artistic types of things growing up. My parents were runners, so they ran a lot of marathons growing up. And my sister and my brother were both involved in team sports. So some of the youngest memories I have, probably around 2nd, 3rd grade, I was actually diagnosed with ADHD, and I don't mean to come off so heavy so early in the episode, but honestly, my ADHD diagnosis and battling that over the last years and years is a big part of my story. So that's why I want to start off sharing that. So with the ADHD diagnosis, I actually started medication in 3rd grade and stayed on that throughout my childhood. So we'll definitely dig a little bit deeper into that. But like I said, I grew up in an active family. Even though I didn't play team sports, which I always wanted to, I remember trying out for like different types of sports, whether that was like volleyball or soccer or track and field in high school. And they were like, oh, thank you for coming out, but you didn't make it on the team. So it was like the will was there to always be athletic. I just didn't have that ability yet. I honestly didn't practice, which is fine. I was interested in other things like theater and dance and singing. At the end of the day, I think I just wanted to be included. Like I was a very social kid, social butterfly. I had so many great memories from my childhood, just from a social setting of like with my siblings, with my family, going on trips, doing things with friends. I was homecoming queen. I did a lot of like singing contests and competitions when it came to the art side of things. So definitely was just like always on the go, loved the social side of things. My high school experience was very positive. With the positive things, though, there were also some times that were really hard, and it really did lie within the ADHD side of things. And some of the memories I can think back on, like with my parents, which now being a parent, I can only imagine dealing with what they dealt with and being so young. I mean, they were in their early 20s when they were trying to figure out how to handle me just not listening, and in school coming home with homework and not doing my homework, not focusing. And that was something that I had always battled, which still to this day, I've had to learn how to overcome in different situations, especially being an entrepreneur, juggling so many different things. Like I have to prioritize my time. So looking back for my parents, I'm like, they definitely dealt with a lot, but they did the best that they could. And so medication was like kind of a next step for them. So it was in the early 90s when ADHD diagnosis was like on the rise, and so many kids are getting diagnosed, when I feel like I have my own thoughts about that too. Like obviously ADHD, ADD is like a real thing, but I also feel like kids can be kids and just have to learn how to prioritize and focus their time. So again, I don't put any blame on my parents. I can only imagine, but looking back, it's crazy that I spent years and years on medication. And I remember there were like certain times in high school and in college where I would just kind of take a step back and think about the fact that I had been on medication, and this was like Ritalin and Adderall, and eventually kind of developed some anxiety. So I was on Wellbutrin for years. I looked at the situation and thought, wow, I've been on medication for so long. I don't even know, honestly, like what my real self is like without it. And I feel like that's so sad to say out loud, but there's a lot brighter side that comes from this. So we'll dig into it, stay tuned. But it was definitely like hard moments of my life that I battled, which has definitely brought me to who I am today. Like going through those hard times, I wouldn't be who I am not having gone through them. So I'm glad I did, but there's always going to be those challenges. But overall in high school, it really was like a very positive experience. And then college came, and I went a few hours away to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, go Vols. And that's when I feel like it was much more of a darker time in my life for a few different reasons. So I rushed to sorority. I was an AO Pi, and with that came more parties, alcohol, fast food, just decisions that probably were not the smartest when it came to where I wanted to go in life, to be quite honest. I felt like having ADHD, not prioritizing probably the way I should have. And as a college student, like my priorities were totally off. I partied a lot, like I said, and drank several times in the week. I would eat Taco Bell like all the time and other fast foods, just to not prioritize my nutrition the way I should have. And I also didn't work out. Like, I think my entire college career, I maybe went to the gym like twice. And it was like one of those situations where I would walk in and like do a couple machines, but not know what to do with it. And again, like prior to college, my metabolism was really great. Like I didn't have to work out. doing musical theater and dancing, I would get enough activity there that I didn't go to the gym or anything in high school. So hormones were at play too. My body was developing a little bit more in college in that sense when it came to hormones. So next thing you know, like they say the freshman 15, but it was more like sophomore 15 for me. It didn't come until like a year later, but I gained around like 20, 25 pounds throughout college. And it wasn't all at once, but it was definitely like over the course of a few years that it just kind of like gradually came. And that was all because of the lifestyle I was living, experimenting with alcohol. I smoked a lot of weed, ate a lot of fast food, didn't have an active lifestyle of like going to the gym. And also too, my academics were at play just because I wasn't applying myself the way I should. I've always been very smart and like taking tests, like I've always been good at it. But when I don't apply myself, like that's when it falls apart. And I didn't do that in college. So it was really dark. And honestly, I still feel like there's trauma there because I look back on college and think, oh, that stings. Like I did not apply myself. I was just interested in the wrong things. And to think of like what I could have become in college if I had applied myself, it's like one of those things where you look back and you're like, dang. But at the end of the day, had I not gone through a lot of those hard things that I went through in college and just unhealthy lifestyle, I wouldn't appreciate where I'm at now and how far I've come. So it was one of those things that I just had to continue to, I have to continue to look at it from a perspective of I'm thankful for those times because I am who I am today because of it. But to go back to college, graduated, I came back to Nashville and kind of had a mentality of, okay, I remember like graduation, senior year of college, the night before I stepped on the scale and thinking to myself, okay, that's a number that I don't want to ever see again. And it's not muscle. Like it was definitely body fat and just not living a healthy lifestyle. So I told myself when I moved back to Nashville, I'm going to start a different life and cut out the drinking, not smoke weed anymore, not eat the way I was, and just really live a different lifestyle. So moved back in with my parents, and my parents had always been super active. Like I said, they were marathon runners. They had always gone to the gym and just were always in really great shape. And my mom had a conversation with me and she basically sat me down and said, like, listen, you have the opportunity here living with us to fully send it. We'll take you to the gym. You can start a new life in that sense when it comes to just like your diet and lifestyle. And likely like living with them, they ate very healthy. They eat very healthy. And so there wasn't like a ton of food for me to binge eat that was not healthy, right? So it was kind of a good setup in that sense. But at the time they had been going to CrossFit. And so my mom invited me to a class, and my first class, I like almost passed out, almost vomited everywhere. I still remember it was horrible because I like definitely made a scene, but it was just showed like the state of, the health I was in. Like it was not good at all. I couldn't go like one gym class without throwing up or getting sick. So that's really all it took though. I went to a couple CrossFit workouts with my mom and then joined the YMCA, where I started lifting weights, doing the Stairmaster, doing the incline walk, and honestly became addicted. So over the course of that next year, got a job. I was going to the gym every day, cut out the alcohol, cut out the weed, cut out the fast food, and really did transform myself. I lost like 25 pounds and had never felt better, which was honestly the first time of feeling that way, the first time prioritizing the gym and my nutrition and my overall health. And from a mental standpoint, I was really good too. I was still medicated at that time, was still taking Adderall every once in a while and on Wellbutrin, but overall was in a really good state of life. So that same year, the first year after college, I got into the pharmaceutical industry. I was in pharmaceutical sales for about 10 years prior to what I'm doing now, and Learned so much. That's honestly what I needed, was just like a good corporate job that was going to instill structure in my life. And just having that sense of responsibility, I think really did help me mature in so many different ways. And I moved out of my parents' house that year. And had my own place and just really matured. And I feel like just like excelled within myself, which is really awesome to see. But in the pharmaceutical industry, I learned so much when it came to diet and lifestyle and, just really prioritizing health and wellness overall. And I learned a lot about the body. Obviously, selling pharmaceuticals, you have to learn about disease states. And I predominantly worked in the cardiovascular business unit. And so learned a lot about cardiovascular health and, obesity and, cardiovascular obesity, like being the number one killer when it comes to where we're at in America and in the world. And so that was even more of a motivation for me to want to take care of my health. And so honestly, for years after that, continued to lift, continued to prioritize my nutrition. And it just year after year kept on getting better and better. Again, still was on medication, but overall was just thriving, which was really awesome. In 2018, I got married to my ex. And that was the same year I started running. I ran my first half marathon. And that's when I kind of got that taste of, okay, I think I might like the running, but which is so funny because I had never been a runner. I remember like years prior, I would go to the, Thanksgiving turkey trots with my family back home, and my legs would start itching after like a quarter of a mile. And I would stop and just be like, oh, this is horrible. Like I just did not have the endurance. But one thing about running is that anybody can do it, I guess, unless you have like knee issues or, leg issues, but anyone can learn to run. It's really an endurance sport and just muscle memory and just working at it each and every day. And so I really liked that challenge. Started running 2018. Like I said, did my first half marathon with my dad, which is really special because he was such a big motivator for me when it came to the running and just would always run with me. And him having run marathons in the past, I learned so much from him with the start of my running journey, which is really, really cool. So I also got married, like I said, 2018, and quickly after got pregnant with my first son, Grayson, who is now 5. And in that pregnancy, I was active, but not super active. I went to the gym, but I think it was like the second trimester, I kind of scaled back. In that pregnancy, I still prioritized nutrition. But like I said, I scaled back the working out. I think I gained maybe around like 45 pounds. And towards the end, just kind of like ate anything and everything and maybe let the nutrition fall out a little bit, but had a really good, healthy delivery, healthy baby. I was in a healthy state and felt really good. So after I had my son, then COVID hit shortly after. And that's when I feel like obviously all of our lives kind of just like flipped upside down. But it was scary, right? Having a newborn, being postpartum, this sickness that was just creating this pandemic. And I wanted to learn more beyond what I had already known from health and wellness and fitness. So over the course of COVID in 2020 and leading into 2021, I just really educated myself and learned so much. That same year in 2021, I made the decision to go off all of my medication. Obviously did not do this cold turkey because, as you know, if some of you guys are on this, that's not something you're supposed to do. Like there's a lot of risks there. But with the, counseling of my doctors, I went off my medication slowly and have not been on it since. And I remember when I went off my medication and was fully off of it, out of my system, like having a moment with myself and thinking, this is who I am. Like, this is who this person has been underneath this medication this entire time. And it was such a just like peaceful, refreshing feeling. And honestly, just so proud of where I have come and through that journey, because like I said, I would not be who I am today without it. So a little bit later after that, I got pregnant with my second son, Quinn, who is now 3 years old. And that pregnancy was completely different. I was working out a lot. I was lifting weights. I was active, going on walks, still running. So I was doing a lot to really like better my health and set myself up for a successful pregnancy and delivery. I also made the decision to have a home birth. So talk about holistic. I went full on holistic there, and it was honestly the best experience of my life. And I bounced back pretty quickly, to be honest. And I think it was because I had stayed so active in my pregnancy. I only gained like 22 pounds with Quinn versus like 45 with Grayson. So that just shows what being active can really do to your body when you are pregnant, which is pretty incredible. I also really dialed in nutrition. So I was eating super clean, obviously eating enough for both baby and I, but prioritizing protein, which I am huge on. I think that really helped with just like my hormonal balance overall as well. So again, I bounced back pretty quickly after that when it came to the weight that was lost, but I didn't have a lot of muscle mass at that point. And so when he turned about a year old, that was the same year, that December, that I decided to get into the gym and start lifting weights pretty heavy. And so I started using a lot heavier weight when it came to dumbbells and was really just more consistent. Like I followed a program that I kind of created myself and just stuck to it and really saw my body transform over the next like 8 months. During that time, I also was having a battle when it came to my career. So again, was in the pharmaceutical industry, but I knew that I wanted to do something more. I just didn't know what that was. And I remember talking to my friends and having these conversations and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I just didn't know yet, but I also knew that when the right thing came along, I would know what it was. And I've always been one to just trust my gut and trust that instinct and follow it. It's never led me wrong. And I'm so glad I did, because over the last few years prior to that, what I had been doing was educating myself around health and fitness and nutrition. And I saw my life change, and I realized that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to share with others. So I went to nutrition school, the Integrative Institute of Nutrition. I also started doing my CPT work to get certified there. And that took over the course of a year. But during that time, I decided to share what was working for me with others on Instagram. And that was scary because at the time, I had a couple thousand followers that were mainly my friends and people that I had met just in my life. So I started putting content out there. I remember that my first reel was chia seed pudding, which is still one of my go-tos, but it felt so forced in the beginning because I feel like as a content creator now, I have built up a following that people are following me to see certain things, right? They're expecting me to put out content that's going to provide value and help them in these areas. Well, at that time in my life, nobody asked to have me post these things for them in that sense. So it felt a little forced, but one thing I'm big on, and I say time after time, is consistency. So I just was consistent, like every week posting content, whether that was recipes or workouts or other types of education. I still was doing a lot of personal life, sharing more pictures, a lot more than I share now. I actually went through and deleted a lot because I'm a lot more personal now, but just was consistent with it all. And that time was also a hard time in the sense that my marriage had fallen apart months prior, and made the decision to go through a divorce. And as hard as that was, I also found an identity within myself that I had never seen before. And I think it was a way for me to cope during that hard time. And so for me, being able to share the things that were bettering me was really helpful. I also signed up for a full marathon, which is crazy that I did that. But having never been a runner before, and running a marathon is just crazy for me to even think back on. But honestly, it was such a great way for me to focus on something during a really hard period of my life. The training for a marathon is totally different than a half marathon, what I had done before. I mean, the miles that you are running every week is a lot and it adds up to a lot of time, but it was also like my little moments of therapy in a sense. So, going through these changes of going to school, trying to balance, that, going through this divorce, my career, my kids, being a mom, it was just an opportunity for me to escape all of the chaos. And I would either listen to music or a podcast. I really like a lot of like nutrition, health, wellness podcasts, and I would just escape. And it was a time for me just to be with myself, which is honestly at that time really what I needed. And so obviously was training for that marathon for months. The marathon was in October. I did the marathon and obviously put some content out there for it. And at that time still only had around 2,000 followers. So I made a reel that I guess you would say what made me go viral, but it was come run the Nashville Marathon with me. And so I put that reel out, posted it, and honestly, it did not get much traction until a couple weeks later. And I have to share this story because it's really funny the way it played out. But I had a surgery in November and I went into surgery. I came back out and I looked at my phone. Obviously, it was like heavily medicated still and on painkillers, kind of like in and out. But I looked at my phone and I saw that I had like 8,000 more followers. And I was like, is this the medication playing tricks with me? Like, what's happening right now? It was not the medication. It was real life. It was just that reel had completely taken off and it was just like building. And then like within the course of like 5-6 months, I think I hit 100K followers, which is crazy. And since then, it's just a domino effect has increased every day, which I'm so thankful for. And that's like the thing that I am honestly most thankful for is my community, because y'all, my community is so amazing. You guys are so amazing. And it's just been so amazing to connect with you all on a deeper level in that sense and be able to make this fun content. So in the beginning of 2024, obviously my Instagram was getting larger. I started producing more content. I was in a really good state of life. Like my divorce was final, obviously at that point had become final the year prior. Things were really good with my kids. We are in our new house. I started dating someone new, Ian, which you guys know of if you follow me on Instagram. He's just been like a huge blessing. And at that time of my life, I was still in my pharmaceutical career and kind of juggling both when it came to content and doing my pharmaceutical gig. So I felt this pressure in the beginning of 2024 of, okay, things are continuing to grow on my Instagram. Like, at what point do I like stop this or stop the pharma career? Like, how do I juggle both? There's no way I can. And I really was when it came to content, which if there's any content creators out there, like you guys know how much time it takes to film and to edit and then post and keep up with comments. And that's something that has been so important to me is being engaged with my community. Like I try to respond to every single comment if I can. I try to respond to as many DMs as I can. And so that alone takes a lot of time. And so just trying to juggle both of those was really hard. And I also at that point, probably around January of 2024, started getting a demand for one-on-one coaching. And I obviously had been in nutrition school, got my CPT, was graduating, and knew I wanted to do one-on-one coaching. I wanted to help other women get to a state where they felt strong like I had done for myself. And so when I graduated in about, I think it was like March, I decided to launch my one-on-one coaching and continue to do my pharmaceutical career. And after a couple weeks of that, I think I only took like 1 or 2 clients. I was like, there is no way that I can do all of this. It was just too much. But at that point, still was not ready to say goodbye to the career in the pharmaceutical industry. But I knew that I would know personally when that time was. And like I said, I am such an like instinct, listen to your gut type of a person. So I knew it was going to come. I just had to listen to it. And so a few weeks later, I, was driving and just got this overwhelming feeling that I just needed to step away from the pharmaceutical career and go full force with my one-on-one coaching and my Instagram. And that's what I did. And I put in my 2 weeks notice. And it was honestly the scariest thing I had ever done because I was a single mom and I had to not only support myself, but support my kids financially. And as an entrepreneur, like that is so scary because being in the corporate world, having a paycheck every 2 weeks and then going to an entrepreneurial type of a job where you might not get a paycheck for a few weeks, to a month, it's a scary thing. So it was definitely the scariest thing I had ever done, but I am so glad I did it because when I stepped away from the pharmaceutical career, and again, remind you, I had been balancing both, working long hours. I feel like there's going to be that crossover for anybody that's maybe in this position that you're going to be working both for a while and it's hard. It's going to be long, long hours, but you're going to know when the time is right and you've got to listen to your gut. So when I did say bye to the pharmaceutical career and I just went full-time content, one-on-one coaching and, being an entrepreneur, it's amazing how many doors opened. So I started doing my one-on-one coaching, taking on a lot more women, which was awesome. And I saw that the demand started to go up. So I put up a waitlist application. And I think like after the first week, there were over like 500 applicants. And I was like, oh my goodness, how can I help all these women? I can't. There's no way that I can myself alone help all these women. And so that's when the wheels started turning. And I thought, okay, what about like a fitness and nutrition app to where I can help more women on a larger scale? So that's when I started working with a company to get my own app going, which took a good 4 to 6 months of building that out. And then I launched that August of 2024. And I truly think it was just what I needed because it was a way for me to build a community even more, connect with more women, but also be able to provide for more women that I couldn't do at the time with just one-on-one coaching. So at this time, I had my one-on-one coaching, I had my app, my Instagram was growing. I was in a really, really good place. And I love doing Q&As. I do them every few weeks on my Instagram. And there were so many good questions that I've gotten over the past year that anytime I did a Q&A, I would finish it up, right? You got to finish it up because you don't want to have like a million stories up there. But I would always close my phone and think, I wish there was a way I could expand more on that one question, or I wish there was more time in the day, more space on this Instagram for me to answer that more in depth or talk more about this or that, or be able to reach more questions in general. So that's when I started thinking about doing a podcast. And I also would get a lot of questions in my DMs of women asking, hey, can you talk about this topic, whether it was, pregnancy or postpartum, or can you talk about binge eating, or can you talk about, the eating disorder you might have faced, which that's a whole nother episode. I want to dig more into that time in my life, which was college and out of college. So there were so many different topics that I knew I wanted to talk about that I didn't have the bandwidth and capacity to do so. So I said, you know what? We're going to do a podcast. And that's what I've been working on over the last few months, which leads me here today, which I am so grateful for. So life update, where am I at now? So right now I have my Instagram. I am creating content, which is so much fun for me to do. That's something that I will always do. It's like that artistic escape, being able to provide value to you guys at the same time is a win-win, I think, for both sides. So doing that on Instagram. I have my fitness app, EMPWR, which is going amazing. We just launched a new program in January. So if you're looking for a good workout program, definitely head on over to my app. I have this podcast, which is going to be my baby this year, to be honest, you guys. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and there's going to be so many exciting episodes to come. So stay tuned. As far as my training, obviously working out every day, but I am training for a fitness race. And if you're not familiar with it or you haven't heard me talk about it, it's called High Rocks. So it is a fitness race / endurance race, but basically there's 8 workout stations, everything from ski erg to wall ball to lunges to farmer's carry, and then you run fast in between. So right now my training looks a little bit different than it normally would. I have built and put on a lot more muscle mass than I normally have, but honestly, like I have never felt stronger just going into the gym every day, lifting weights, lifting the barbell. I truly feel so strong, and it's a really cool feeling. So that is what I am working towards this spring. By the time this episode airs, I will have done my High Rocks race, my first solo High Rocks race in Vegas. And then Ian and I have a competition in April. So that's going to be my main focus this spring. I am going to start training for the New York City Marathon in the summer. That'll be in November. So I will be picking up the pace when it comes to miles for that. But a lot of exciting things to look forward to. I think this year is going to be a year of growth and a year of saying yes to lots of opportunities. And I cannot wait for you guys to come with me for that entire journey. So I want to share beyond health, beyond fitness, beyond nutrition. I want to talk about personal life, like the things that I battle every single day. I feel like on social media, it can sometimes look too perfect. And I definitely have a perfectionist mentality. And I want to do away with that this year. On my Instagram too, but on here, I want to open up. I want to share the battles and the demons that I face every day that you guys might be facing too. A way for us to connect and figure out a way that we can grow stronger together, right? It's all about empowerment and being our strongest self. So expect some exciting episodes, expect some exciting guests in the health and wellness space, expect an opportunity for us to learn and for us to grow. And I honestly couldn't think of a better community to do this with. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are looking forward to it. And I cannot wait for you to be with me on this journey.